Um, what we found is that it actually took 2 additional weeks of postmortem aging for that control group to reach a similar Warner-Bratzler shear force value that we achieved immediately in 90
Wow.
minutes of tumbling, which was pretty cool to see.
Hello, me folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. My name is Francisco Nahara. I'm your host today. It's been some time that I really wanted to sit down um, with Dr. Tuell, and we have today with us because they conducted a research not too long ago. He was still in grad school um, at Purdue with Dr. Kim about tumbling, and a lot of the times we don't think about tumbling or some of the equipment that we have in our facilities to potentially have a positive effect on tenderness. And I think we'll be talking about this today. Welcome, Dr. Tuell, for having some time on your visa. I know it's been the beginning of the semester this last couple of weeks, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Francisco. I'm really excited to talk about this. And it's definitely something I'm very passionate about, more on the teaching side now for my job, but still very like to be very involved in the research side of things as well.
Absolutely. I'm very excited because I really think that by doing very minimum on your side, you can have a very good positive effects on tenderness. Please tell us about this research that you guys conducted. Um, Maybe you can walk us through a little bit of the design, what was the hypothesis, and why was this research conducted? So
Sure. Um, so I'll say, I mean, the first thing that you said hit the nail right on the head from the standpoint of this is a very simple experimental design. And it's something that actually, whenever we were coming up with the idea, Dr. Kim came to where our office was and uh, kind of said, like, get pitch this idea. And I was like, there's no way nobody's never, nobody's thought of doing this study before. Um, and actually, as we, took this to meetings and went to publish papers on it, that was one of the biggest kind of pushbacks we got is tumbling's been something that's been done for decades in the meat industry. And how could there be, really anything new or novel happening in the world of tumbling? But I mean, kind of what was happening at the same time is we were looking at some really interesting work that was coming out of Texas Tech. So is Dr. Mark Miller and Dr. Andrea Garman, who were doing work on tumbling beef flanks. So beef flanks are a muscle that we consider to be underutilized or undervalued because it has some palatability issues when it comes to tenderness. So they were essentially looking at doing different injection, marinating, tumbling treatments to improve palatability of those muscles. And one of the things that they were really interested in was, I think, achieving clean label, which is also a big push in industry right now. But actually, one of the studies that we kind of based a lot of the work that we did off of, they had a positive control group that was beef flanks that were tumbled without the brine solution, just to see what the tumbling process alone could do. And what they found probably, doesn't bode well for us in terms of why we would think this would be a good process. But they found that for their conditions, that tumbling alone did not achieve tenderization in the beef flanks. But we still looked at that. We really liked the idea of being able to maybe apply the process to a different muscle. So obviously, if you think about the flank, it's a very, wide, flat muscle, big muscle fibers, a lot of connective tissue. And so we wanted to see if maybe we could apply this to other cuts, some tender, some, somewhere in the middle, some of them very tough. And the other piece of the puzzle was looking at postmortem aging. So in their study, they tumbled and then essentially froze those samples pretty soon after and then evaluated them after thawing. But we were interested in seeing if maybe disrupting that muscle structure and then allowing those products to age could have some synergistic effect on tenderization. So maybe we could release calcium that's in the sarcoplasmic reticulum or improve calpain autolysis, or really any number of things. So that was kind of the rationale for the studies that we conducted. In general, so I would kind of just broad overview. We did have 3 papers published in this area. The work that we've done or muscle we've done the most work on is the strip loin, which is no stranger to us in meat science. But we also looked at some intermediate tenderness muscles from the sirloin. So we had the top sirloin, the sirloin cap, and the tri-tip, as well as the eye of round muscle, which of course comes from the round primal, has a lot of palatability issues, has a lot of connective tissue. It looks very attractive, looks like it will make a really good steak, but unfortunately, there's some issues there in terms of getting it to become tender. So just briefly, experimental design. We already had a tumbler. We're like a lot of small meat processors at our facility, so we had access to a Lance LT30 500-pound capacity tumbler. We vacuum packed our sections, tumbled them depending on the study anywhere from 40 minutes to 120 minutes, which would equate to about 350 to 1,000 tumbling cycles, and allowed them to age afterwards, either 0 days, so we would immediately evaluate them just to see what tumbling did, but also allow them to age anywhere from 10 to 14 additional days.
This is very important that you're saying, because when you first started talking about this, you mentioned this first study with some other muscles that, you say the flank, and a lot of the times when I go to a plant, a lot of the muscles that are tumbled or marinated are typically like the inside skirt or the flank, or those muscles with heavy connective tissue. But I guess this is a good hypothesis that maybe another contributor for like this type of muscles you mentioned from the round or from the sirloin and the longissimus lumbrum, obviously one of the most researched muscles in meat science. And tell us a little bit about I guess we can go through our results, but I really want to talk about the tumbling. How did you establish the tumbling times? Did you, because there's with the Lance, with any tumbler on the market, you have some options that you can reverse or pause by 20 minutes, pause 20 minutes, and go back and forth. There's a lot of options there.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can go from there, and then we can hop on the results.
Sure. So I will say probably a kind of unscientific rationale for why 8.5 RPM was our uh, revolutions that we chose is because that's where our machine maxed out at. So um, that's kind of what we were trying to target. And really just because there's not a ton of work out there on tumbling fresh meats without the brine or marinade solution, we were really trying to model our treatments off of the treatment or the group that came out of Texas Tech. And so their treatment was 20 minutes at 10 RPM. And so we were at 8.5 RPM. So we know we needed to go a little bit longer than that. So we started our first treatment, or our most, I guess, mild treatment was 40 minutes. And then we went all the way up to 120 minutes. As far as reversing and a lot of you talked about intermittent tumbling. So you can either tumble continuously or intermittent. Um, the main purpose of doing an intermittent tumbling cycle is to allow that product to essentially rest and uptake the brine or marinade solution. Because we're tumbling without the brine or marinade solution, we're simply tumbling the meat in its packaging. That's not something that we really thought was going to be very relevant to the type of product that we were trying to work on.
Perfect. And I think we can, and it is great because a lot of the times we think about tumbling, either to add a marination, as you said, or to add some flavor. I mean, but and obviously, I mean, you get some yield as well because you add some other things like salt or phosphate to help retain that water. But we don't typically think about tumbling as a tenderness um, aid. Tell me about the results. And I know you did some protein degradation studies, and we have some of our listenership. They're not meat scientists, so I guess we can talk about the protein degradation part and also how that links with some of the subjective and objective results you have from tenderness for your results in this study.
Sure, absolutely. So kind of the first study that we conducted was just looking at the strip loin. So for that study, we did either a control group, which was not tumbled. We had 60 or 90 minutes of tumbling. And what we found was immediately for those Warner-Bratzler shear force values, which is our measure of instrumental tenderness, we got a huge reduction, which was really, really exciting to see. So we started, I believe, check my notes really quick, but we were around 3.5 kilograms in our control group, which is uh, in the tender category, but it's on the upper end. So obviously for strip loins, we're most of the time still going to be somewhere in that tender, or sometimes we can creep into intermediate.
And this is
But
a what time of tumbling? This is just or
this was
what?
for our control.
Our
The
control.
control group
Okay.
was around 3.5 kilograms. Immediately after tumbling for the 90 minutes, we took that down to 2.2, which
Wow.
is that's when we think about tenderness categories, very tender is quite a bit above that. So we were well within the very tender category. Um, what we found is that it actually took 2 additional weeks of postmortem aging for that control group to reach a similar Warner-Bratzler shear force value that we achieved immediately in 90
Wow.
minutes of tumbling, which was pretty cool to see. We did do some protein work, so troponin T degradation, desmin degradation. Those are essentially looking at proteins that help the myofibrils and the muscle fibers stay together and give them their structural integrity. And so what we found is that there was some evidence that tumbling was going to have some positive impact on degrading those proteins with postmortem aging. I will say, to kind of skip ahead to the follow-up study that we did, which was a similar design. We just had more experimental units, and we had more treatments, so 40, 80, and 120 minutes of tumbling. We did find similar things for proteolysis. So tumbling plus aging does seem to have some positive impact on protein degradation. But by and large, I would say that this is mostly due to just physically fragmenting those muscle fibers. So we did a lot of transmission electron microscopy. So spend a lot of time on an electron microscope looking at the myofibrils and looking at their integrity. And it was really cool to see because you see a lot of Z-line degradation. You see, fragments where there's going to be, 6 to 10 adjacent myofibrils that have, essentially where they've entirely fragmented apart from one another. And so I would say primarily this is a physical process more than something that's enzymatic. But the enzymes definitely do play a role. And actually, there was a master's student doing a similar project alongside while we were doing these, and she applied a uh, tumbling process early post-mortem and did get some good results in terms of calpain autolysis. So seeing that calpains were activated early post-mortem um, through the tumbling process. In my studies, we tumbled at 5 to 7 days post-mortem. So we didn't see the same thing in terms of calpains, but likely that's just because we're at that later time point. Um, to kind of get into intermuscular differences, one thing with that is that when we look at a lot of those different assays that we did, so we did the transmission electron microscopy, we did Western blots for those different proteins, desmin and troponin T. We did an assay called myofibril fragmentation index, which helps us determine essentially how much degradation has occurred to the structure of those muscle fibers. And by and large, we saw almost identical things across the board in the eye of round as we saw for the strip loin. And so that's something that we were, again, really excited about because that's suggesting that you're going to have really good tenderness of the eye of round. And that's something, if you're pretty familiar with meat science and different beef cuts, that would be huge. The thing is that we started around 4.3 kilograms of shear force for the eye of round. And even though we saw all those differences in terms of proteolysis and fragmentation, uh, we stayed there. So any duration of tumbling was not effective at tenderizing the eye of round muscle.
Interesting. And how about the consumer data?
So one thing that we did see that was a concern with our instrumental things is we looked at water holding capacity. So how well is the product holding onto its water? You can imagine because we're tumbling without a brine solution, that's going to raise some red flags in terms of, causing unacceptable purge or moisture loss from the product. By and large, I would say our purge losses were pretty low, acceptable if you saw them in the package. I don't think that you would really look twice at them as having unacceptable purge loss. And that was, fortunately, even though we did have some increased cooking loss by a few percentage points, consumers could not detect a difference in juiciness. The other thing that we saw for the strip loin is that tumbling for any duration, 40, 80, 120 minutes, improved tenderness liking as well as overall liking to a similar extent that was achieved with postmortem aging between essentially a 5-day and a 15-day postmortem time point. So I would say that from a sensory perspective, uh, tumbling is going to help improve tenderness. And at least what we saw in our studies is that it's not going to have a very big negative impact on juiciness, as well as the other component that you probably need to think about is going to be flavor, where we expect that flavor to a certain extent is going to improve during aging. However, flavor liking was the same across all of our treatments. Similar thing though for the eye of round. We did again that's a separate 120 person consumer panel for the eye of round. And just like we didn't move the needle in terms of instrumental tenderness, uh, really across the board, consumers found that palatability attributes, tenderness included, were going to be mostly similar across the board. The exception to that is that we did see that the combination of an extended duration of tumbling, so 120 minutes, and 10 additional days of postmortem aging did have a slightly higher tenderness liking compared to some of the other treatment combinations. So I wouldn't rule out that this isn't, going to be an effective process on the eye of round. I think there just needs to be, either a more severe sort of tumbling treatment to really
Yeah,
break up those muscle fibers,
more aggressive tumbling, perhaps, or more time.
or something that's going to degrade connective tissue, because that's the other piece of the puzzle. Is we did look at collagen and some of the characteristics of collagen, like solubility, and found that tumbling is not going to affect collagen degradation. So if you
Right.
have a muscle that's really high in collagen, then you're probably not going to do a really good job at improving its tenderness, especially in the case for us that we're cooking everything fast and dry like you would a steak, and you're not doing that slow, moist heat cookery that can solubilize collagen.
Very interesting. I really like the factor that your statement on you can have by tumbling a very similar effect that you would have a day 14 of aging or postmortem aging on
Mhm.
the linguistic model, right? I think that's a very good, I mean, outcome, or at least that you can communicate with the audience, right? Like you can save
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah. And when you consider the most recent National Beef Tenderness Survey, it's around 26 days. Of course, there's going to be quite a bit of variability across that, but around 26 days of post fabrication aging time that most cuts are receiving in the beef industry before they reach the consumers. And so, if we can say through this process that you can knock, a couple weeks off of that, that's pretty huge in terms of being able to increase product turnover and still guarantee that you're going to give consumers a palatable product.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm sure, and this is I love this. I love this because, as you said in the very beginning, I mean, I guarantee you a lot of the people listening that have a meat facility, they have a small tumbler.
Yeah,
So they can test. So they can if they're harvesting their animals or they want to do, I mean, they can literally do some testing on that and there's no other or additional investment on equipment. So it's a good, very inexpensive option for them to do. So
absolutely.
well, we're getting to the end, and we have other topics that we'd like to visit later with you. Um, for the people that don't know you, please tell us a little bit about your background, how this love for meat science started, this passion, and I guess that's something I wanted to ask you first too.
Sure, absolutely. So I've always been super passionate about food. Growing up, I was dead set. Always thought I was going to go into culinary was where my passion was, but also was pretty good at science and was really interested in doing that kind of um, pathway as well. And so I ended up going to Purdue, majored in animal science with the focus on animal products, which was our concentration, which was focused on meat, milk, and eggs. So I took a lot of food science courses. Started working with Dr. Brad Kim 2017, and it was just a perfect fit. He's been a fantastic mentor to me as well as my classmates that were in his lab as well. Also took a meat science course with Dr. Stacy Zelli, who was on my committee through my graduate degree. And I think it's just one of those things is when you have two people like that that are so passionate about meat science, it's hard not to get passionate about it as well. So I love working with them. They're both awesome, awesome people. Uh, so I actually ended up after it was really good fit working with Dr. Kim as a undergraduate student, and I actually we decided to go ahead and go straight into a PhD and bypass a master's. So uh, I think Brad wanted me to stick around for he got me for 4 more years with a PhD, and I think he would have kept me for several more if he was able to. But just a great fit. So graduated with that in 2022 and started my position at Northwest Missouri State University as an assistant professor of animal and food sciences in the School of Agricultural Sciences here this year or this past year. So I've been here teaching for just over 1 year and absolutely love it.
Well, thank you a lot for your time. We're not very far. You're in Maryville, we're in Kansas City, so hopefully we
Yes,
can get together sometime. And thank you a
that'd
lot
be
again for your
awesome.
time.
Yep,
And I
thank you.
hope,
I
I,
really
I
enjoyed
hope,
this.
yeah, and I really hope, and I'm sure a lot of people will like, really, does that really help in that way? So, thank you a lot for your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.